Independent Showcase episode 3, episode 666 in total, episode 866 if you include shorts in 2 and a bit years. Welcome to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I'm your host, Adam Cousins, and it's again, like I said, Independent Showcase time where we bring on independent wrestlers, promotions, commentators, referees, whoever, as part of the indie scene in the US or the UK or again, anywhere. And I've got a really good guest for today. I went to see their show back in December, Jingle Bell Brawl. Thanks, big shout out to Ministry of Wrestling, by the way, for that. It was a hell of a show. I finally got the girlfriend off my back saying about how she wanted to go and see the show. We finally got there. It's Riot Cabaret. It's Shaun. It's James. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. That is an episode 666 as well. Teenage Got Me is delighted. We're thrilled with that.
Yeah, it is I must still be insane to have done 666 episodes. But anyway, it's great to have you guys on. And just want to say, we had a ton of fun at your last show. Our first experience of Riot Cabaret won't be our last, that's for sure. It was absolutely brilliant. Totally different from what we're used to, but that's what I enjoyed, the fact that it was so different and the variety, which I think is missing in British wrestling, by the way. It was great to have. So thank you for that and in the show that you put on. Let's just start. Look, your 2024, Shaun, in Riot's eyes, I mean, in my eyes, all I saw was everywhere was so much positive stuff. How was it for you guys at Riot, Shaun?
I think it's been, I'd say, our key year. I think, especially towards the end of the year, since the all-in show, all singing, all dancing, we sold out 2 out of 3 of our last shows, and our October show, I think we saw like double the attendance of the October show the year before. So I think towards the end of this year, it kind of feels like the people that know what Riot Cabaret is all about, and the people are excited. And there's been some amazing matches and amazing things and debuts coming out of this year.
James, is that something that you agree with? And also, what's been the most important things that Riot have done in 2024 in your eyes? Is it continue to grow the brand, or is it more outreach? What's it been like for you?
Yeah, I think the most probably important thing that we've, it's not so much something that we've done, it's more something that our audiences have done, I think. When we look at our ticket holders and the people who are buying tickets for our events, what we tend to find is that once people have found us, they stay with us. And they bring other people. So it's more a thing that the fans are doing, which we want to give them an enormous shout out for, because so many people get brought along by maybe partners of theirs, like in your case, or sort of, people that they work with who go like, I love wrestling and I think it's the best thing, but I know that you guys maybe don't engage with it all that much. I found a thing that you're really going to like. Trust me on this. Come with me. And then people come to the show, and I think they realize that it's a fun night out that they can enjoy, whether or not they follow wrestling and are kind of diehard fans of Brit Rest or any of the TV from the States or whatever. And they then bring other people. So just the fact that when we look at the kind of list of ticket holders, we see the same names cropping up again and again, and they're kind of buying more and more tickets, and they're bringing more and more people, and they're spreading the word, and they're sharing it with their networks. I think that's been a big part of the kind of successes that Shaun mentions. And obviously as well, we were delighted to have Thunder Rosa coming in with us in August, and then she's going to be with us for a while. So that moment as well, I think was another kind of step up in terms of the level of the promotion, as it were. I think that got a few more eyes on us too. So yeah, it's been a really cool year so far.
It certainly has. Just to touch on the Thunder Rosa thing quickly, obviously an AEW star. That's a great sort of partnership to have so early on, that you've got that it's gone out there enough that regardless of whether she's allowed to do independent dates and such, what she still has to get permission to do those. So it's obviously a good stead for Riot straight away that AEW have kind of like agreed to do it, even though you're still kind of in your infancy a little bit.
Yeah, I think what's been really lovely about the Thunder Rosa stuff is that I think we've just matched so well in terms of what she's wanted to be doing more in wrestling, and the sort of shows that Riot Cabaret have been putting on. I think Thunder Rosa came to our show on All In Weekend last year, and off the back of that, we struck up a conversation. And as you've seen, when Thunder's been at Riot Cabaret, she's a very multifaceted performer. And she wanted to do more things and explore that kind of side of her performance. And we were like, hey, you want to do some music? You want to do some singing? You've come to the right place. So I think what's been really great about working with Thunder has been able to take someone who's such a great star, such a great talent, and be able to say, what more do you want to do with us? Which has been really, really, really great.
And to touch on that, James, it must be great that a big star like someone that's prevalent in AEW wants to come to Riot Cabaret as well and perform. That's obviously huge for you guys.
It was, and when we were kind of talking about, because obviously we met her in the other show that Shaun mentions back at our All In show in 2023. We were kind of still loosely in touch then, and that's when that contact was first made. But it wasn't really something we thought. She felt at that point, I think, quite out of reach, just in terms of the relative stature of our company and just her as a a global talent. So when we kind of put that initial inquiry out there for our show this past August, we were really, really pleased that the mood music that came back was as positive as it was, and getting that deal done. I think it was something that all parties were just found very interesting. So that was really, really cool, and I think just an indication, as much of anything, two things. Yes, we are, I think, largely making the steps in the right direction, and with the kind of the direction of travel of the company is overall very good. But I think just as much for the fans and the roster as well, everyone's creating something that is exciting. It feels like, you say, there's something different about it. There's a bit more variety to it, so it just, I think, helps it stand out in the marketplace a little bit more. That when you do get anyone's eyes on it, Thunder Rosa's eyes, a new set of fans' eyes, anything, they're kind of looking at it and they're going, might not know exactly what this is straight away, but it's certainly a little bit different, which I think always helps.
Yeah, it certainly does. And before we start to go back to the foundations really of Riot, for anyone that doesn't know, for anyone that hasn't been before, James, tell us what does make Riot different from everywhere else?
I think what makes Riot, you used those two perfect words earlier on, which is that difference and that variety. I think at Riot, we're always looking to make sure that everything on the card serves its own quite distinct role within the overall experience that the fans are having. So, you'll have a kind of sprint banger match. We always try and do some cool stuff with tag team wrestling. There might be a gimmick match, or there's going to be some kind of theme to the evening. There's going to be something that's really based around a lot of story and narrative going into it, but we don't kind of steep it so much in that if it's your first show, you can't understand what's going on. We still set that story up at the start of the night so that when that match then comes along, it still pays off nicely. So everything, it's kind of like a bit of a taster menu. Everything on the night, you're getting just something a little bit different, and you never sat there. Well, hopefully, if we've done our jobs, you never sat there kind of feeling like you've had too much of one thing and not enough of another. So I think that's probably our first and foremost thing when we're putting the shows together is, where does this sit within the overall ecosystem of our show? Like, what are we going to be putting out there that's going to have people when they're on the tube home being like, and I love this bit, and then he went through the table, and then this person came out and did like a drag cabaret routine, and then Christmas Mood End came out, and what the hell? That kind of stuff I think is always really good, because then you've got something that, if you're like a real dyed-in-the-wool wrestling fan, there's a gap that it can be bridged between your person from work who's never been to a wrestling show ever. There's still something cool in there for everyone. So I think that's our main approach, first of all, I think.
And I think, Shaun, to add to what James was saying, the storyline aspect to it, we saw it very much play out a lot on social media, as well as at some of your events. The one I'm going to mention in particular was the Spike Gervais Trials Crowley bit, because it added, you add those elements together, the variety, the musical bit, but you still got the quote unquote serious side, the storyline build of wrestling for that wrestling fan. And those two encapsulated those last few shows brilliantly in what they did.
I think, for my money, when it comes to storytelling, they're two of the best, I think, anywhere in terms of Spike and Crowley. And I mean, what they put together, well, what they have put together throughout their entire sort of feud in Riot Cabaret, I think has been absolutely phenomenal. And what's been really amazing is when we're putting the video packages for that together and we're watching it and they're like, this is a storyline that we kind of booked and we're working on, but I'm still getting sucked in to the performances that both of these men are putting together. And I think that's probably one of the things that I've been most proud of at Riot Cabaret, has been the Spike and Crowley stuff, because I think, for me personally, stories in wrestling, that's the things. I think when we started this, we wanted variety. We wanted to be able to appeal to a casual audience. We wanted it to be a night out, but we wanted it at the heart to have good wrestling story. And Spike and Crowley, I think, have been at the heart of so much of that good story stuff at Riot throughout our whole history. So I was so proud of what those guys have put together for us over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and a fitting end as well. Well, potentially end. We'd assume end at Jingle Bell Brawl with any luck. And great match was had by all. James, the process. You don't just wake up in the morning and go, "Oh, I've got a great idea. Let's start a wrestling company." How does that? I've been in. Look, we do, as I said before we went on there, we do a lot of stuff with Ignite. We got a championship with Ignite, so I do a little bit of booking. I throw names in a hat of people who I want to come in. Spike was one of the names that actually, fun enough, we brought in recently. But you don't just wake up in the morning and say, "I want to start a wrestling company." What is the process of how it all panned out to get to Riot's show one?
No, yeah.
Loads of beers,
Yeah,
loads and loads of beers.
Waking up in the morning and thinking that would have been far too sensible. We were in New York actually for WrestleMania. I believe it was 35, the team one.
Yeah.
And there's a bar, slightly less auspicious now, but there's a bar just outside the Barclays Center. So we were ready to go for NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. There's a bar just outside the Barclays Center called McMahon's. And obviously, 2019, a slightly different time. A whole cohort of wrestling fans there for Mania. It made sense. So we were enjoying ourselves, a few Guinnesses, and the conversation kind of began there because we were already we'd been watching loads of wrestling on the plane. We'd been watching loads of wrestling in the Airbnb. We were about to watch about 3 or 4 days of ceaseless wrestling. So our thought already at that stage, even before we'd actually started going to any of the Mania shows, was just like, the format is usually kind of the same, and there's very little that is kind of done by the way of that word again, variety, and changing it up and making it different. And I think this is one of the things that when a company comes through and does something slightly different, like on the Steve Austin show back in the day, he was always raving about the first season of Lucha Underground, because he was just like, this is so different than anything else that's out there at the moment. And he was getting so excited about it. And I remembered I hadn't heard Austin get so excited about anything that was like new wrestling for a while. So that kind of thing where like, if you were going to put a company together, what would you do to kind of make it different? And how would you make it so that it was something that people hadn't necessarily seen before, but it still had that sense of familiarity? So they had that touch point with it. And then by the end of the week, that kind of belief had been reinforced even more, because we'd seen loads and loads of lovely wrestling. We'd had an amazing time. But by the end, I think probably not helped by the ridiculous million-mile-an-hour New York nonsense that was kind of surrounding it. But it all kind of blended into one and was a bit of a blur. So I think Shaun and I have kind of a similar personality to each other, in the sense that we're both people who, if a silly idea is kind of verbalized and put out there into the world, it's never, "Oh yeah, that would be fun, wouldn't it?" On to the next topic of conversation. It's, "Oh yeah, that would be fun, wouldn't it? What needs to happen next in order for that to actually happen?" See also Mr. Blobby. So that was very much the thing of like, we started that conversation, and then we were due to run our first show. So at the time I was working on a theatre show in Bond Street, the Great Gatsby. And we were going to do our first show there in April of 2020. And then obviously COVID happened, and that kind of completely derailed things, which actually perversely at the time it was completely devastating. But at the time it was probably the best thing that could have happened to us, because I think we did about a year's prep to kind of get the company kind of ready to a place where we felt like it was in the right shape to launch. And then it turned out that there was still so much more we could still do, and actually lockdown and all of the associated everything kind of stopping for a while gave us the time to do that anymore. So we had even more of a revamp of just the overall brand and how we wanted to present ourselves, position ourselves. We went and spoke to some more venues and ended up at our current home, the Clapham Grand, who were just like the perfect partner for us. So really, even though it was devastating at the time, because we'd invested like a year of our bandwidth and our emotional and mental energies into getting this show ready to go, and then it all felt like it got taken away from us just on the, like, I think it was about 2 weeks before show one or 3 weeks before show one. Actually, that ended up being the best thing that could have happened to us, because it really gave us the chance to regroup and kind of go, right, how can we make this even better?
Yeah, and Shaun, when you get to that stage, obviously it's shut down, it reopens again. You say, right, this is the new day. The week of that, or the week before, shall we say, what are those overriding emotions that you're going through? Obviously, again, knowing a little bit, I know pullouts and injuries and whatnot. But what are those overriding emotions as you're getting closer and closer to that show one day?
Yeah, Sean, what are the overriding emotions?
Well, I can say what the emotions were. I know what James's emotions were because he was having a lovely time in Glastonbury. So our first show was on the Tuesday,
Yeah.
and the weekend before was Glastonbury. So James was in a field with very limited communication as the show was sort of crumbling around our ears. And I was at a book event hosting. It was really. I was hosting like a David Baddiel interview at a book festival, and unfortunately Spike had to pull out due to injury. So I've got David Baddiel's publishers kind of trying to talk me through what this event is while I'm desperately on Twitter, just like trying to find someone who can like be in the tournament and in the main event, trying to get in contact with James. Like, yes, publisher, I've definitely read David Baddiel's book and not just been on Cage Match, looking up all sorts of like who's been on anything ever. But building up to the show, there was a lot of nervousness because I didn't really know what to expect at all. I mean, our backgrounds, we've worked in, so obviously James is an actor, has worked in theatre. I've been working in like radio, podcasts, in little sparingly bits of television and stuff, but I couldn't really visualize what it was going to be like on a show day, dealing with talent, dealing with wrestlers. But so the actual whole day was a blur. But I think actually in terms of, we pretty much planned it quite meticulously. And I think our experience in being part of other productions in other industries, I think really helped us in terms of, we brought our expertise from those other industries, be that theatre or production, and just applied them to a wrestling show. So we weren't going in there with kind of like a wrestling mind. It was more our minds from other practices, essentially. And I think that's what kind of got us through the organizational side of the day. But I remember on the day being sat and watching Cara Noir versus Chuck Mambo absolutely kill it in the first ever Riot Cabaret match. And that is still to this day one of my favorite Riot Cabaret matches. And just thinking, I'm in love with this. This is so great.
It was like
I think just to quickly add one thing to that as well. I think one, you mentioning like the feeling on the show day, Sean, is so true. Like with the Cara and Mambo match, particularly, we chose that match because, to the kind of slightly more casual audience who, you know, we didn't make any assumptions about what our audience may or may not know about wrestling. We didn't know who was going to come through the door. We didn't know if anyone was going to come through the door. So we didn't make any assumptions about, oh, they're going to know who everyone is. They're going to be dyed-in-the-wool British wrestling fans and so on. So when we were doing those kind of first round tournament matchups and working out what needed to go where, Cara and Mambo seemed to be the perfect choice for so many reasons. A, because we knew, as Sean said, the match would bang, but also in terms of like two personalities that would just be like a really perfect thing. If you've never seen wrestling before, who's this? There's this kind of amazing, shimmering, like ballet-esque, incredible presence that just has this intangible kind of sense of the spectacular about it. And then there's this amazing surfer dude covered in like glitter and throwing beach balls around everywhere who just seems like the happiest man in the known universe. I've never seen wrestling before, but I can kind of tap into whatever's going on here. But as well, there was a kind of, you just kind of reignited something that had kind of been dormant in my brain, which is the context of that first show as well. Obviously, coming after everything that happened during the pandemic and speaking out as well. I think launching those first shows, audiences were rightly very kind of skeptical of the scene and you know, a lot of new promotions kind of springing up, and I think winning the trust of not only the talent but also the audience as well was a really important thing. So we certainly felt that pressure to get that right too, because we knew that, you know, for the scene to kind of continue to survive even and then grow, you know, any companies that were running shows as you emerged from that kind of lockdown setting, you needed to make sure that they got it right in, you know, in front of the curtain and behind it. So I think we did feel a big responsibility to do that as well. So yeah, that was something else that was playing on our minds for sure.
Definitely. So, and was he doing a tournament? You were expecting another show. I mean, obviously you got there, you got a lot of people through the door, which was great. But Sean, did you kind of, at the end of that, was you kind of confident enough that, and obviously you may have announced another show on the card, but was you confident enough that, yes, we've done enough here to cement a kind of, as you say, returning fan base that you know would come back in the next show?
Yeah, 100%. I think we got to the end of that show, and for me, that was like, right, we're well, me and James at the end of that show, which very much sums up our dynamic, and that James absolutely killed it as the MC. Had been in the ring in the middle for the whole night, and I think the whole build up of it, it was very emotional at the end. And I come backstage, we had like a little green room there, and James is there with like tears in his eyes and like arms outstretched for this hug moment, and I was just like, stop crying, because we haven't done anything yet. And that was kind of my feeling coming out of the show, was that it was great, brilliant. It was the ending of that first show with Chuck Mambo holding up the bell and the Beatles and the confetti raining down was a really special moment. But for me, it was like, right, like the actual work to actually build something that's going to be good and special and selling this building out like that starts now. And I think that first show, definitely, in terms of the experience in running, experience dealing with talent as well, that was something which we were like a little bit unknown, like, but everybody who was on that show, as because they are now still working with us 2 years on, an absolute delight. So it was after that I was like, right, we can start building something here.
And James, being in the middle of there, because you are the master of ceremonies, for want of a better phrase, for the Riot Cabaret, could you sense the excitement in the crowd from when you kept obviously coming out to announce the matches? You could feel that energy. Was that energy there throughout the whole show, that when you kind of, what part in your mind did it click during that show that, yeah, we've got something here?
Do you know what? I would love to be able to give you a point. I think it was so much of a kind of blur of adrenaline for me. There was, I'm not really sure there was. I think I knew. Do you know what? I think it was the point that it actually was it was when it was right at the start, and it was certainly when I felt it. And I don't know whether, the audience may have felt the same thing as well. It was when Cara came out and did his entrance right at the top of the show. And obviously, Cara Noir, arguably the most spectacular entrance in the country. And he came out and did that. And it's very different watching Cara Noir, with the kind of the wings doing this, and you're sat there from a seat and you're watching it as a fan, which I've done plenty of times. It's very, very different watching him do that than when you're stood right next to him in the ring with a mic in your hand about to announce it. And that was the moment where I think seeing that happen like a foot away from me is like even more spectacular. So I think that was the point at which I just went, God, we're actually, yeah, something is about to happen here. And I think that people kind of sense it as well. But yeah, definitely like the top and the tail of the show, like Shaun mentions, the Mambo celebration and the confetti and everything. So one of the things we're very conscious of is investing in the production value of our shows. So we have confetti drops, we have balloon drops for those kind of big moments, just to kind of elevate it. And I think those types of things just help the fans really kind of buy into it in the sense of the grandeur. And they gave Mambo a standing ovation as he left. And I think that was one of the things that just kind of triggered the emotional outpouring that Shaun mentioned earlier on, where I was like, sweet, they like it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the first foundational step. But also that kind of moment of catharsis that Shaun mentions in the green room too. That wasn't just that one show of Riot Cabaret. That was 2.5 years of work, like all pouring out of me in that moment. So it wasn't even like oh cool, we've done our first show and now I'm going to allow myself a little cry. It was 2.5 years of going, Jesus, are we ever going to get to this point? Is this ever actually going to happen? And once you've ticked that first one off, then yeah, like Shaun says, you can start to look to the future.
And I didn't even allow you to have that.
No. It did sort of feel like, yeah, the like 2.5 years of our lives have kind of been building towards this moment, and you've got to allow yourself those little indulgences from time to time, otherwise you'll go crazy.
You do. I can only put that down when you're talking about Cara Noir. Every wrestler that I've interviewed, like ex-WWE, have said the same thing. When they were in the ring and the Undertaker's music goes off and they're facing the Undertaker, and you've got that, I don't know, 5-minute entrance that he does, where obviously he slowly walks, and it's like at that point, that whole, I think in loads of the cases they feel as if they've made it when they get in and they get an opportunity just to go one on one with him. And I know it's a totally different thing you're standing there introducing someone, but it's when that production of the entrance and the smoke and the flames, and you've got this big near 7 foot dude walking down to the ring at the end. And even us in the crowd, we all feel it as fans. We all feel it together when that happens. So I kind of get where you're coming from there. And your jubilation is kind of the same with, and it's on a much smaller scale with us, but when we introduced our championship to Brit Rest or in Ignite, and we had that crowning triple threat match to crown that championship, the first winner of our championship. And that moment for us was just a moment that, in the wildest dreams, as two wrestling fans sitting there drinking Guinness in New York, picturing Riot Cabaret, to 3 or 4 wrestling fans, starting a podcast in COVID, nearly me in my case actually nearly dying of heart failure at one point before All In. So I was doing a podcast from a hospital bed. If you ever want to check that out, go, and that's hilarious. Which is crazy. And then
That's commitment.
what was
That's
that?
commitment.
Commitment or stupidity, probably both, to be fair. But yeah, so from I can understand getting from where you guys are coming from, totally different in terms of size and stature, but the same feeling of that, oh my God, we've done it kind of thing. But to now change it a bit further, Sean, what are the main when you're looking at talent for Riot Cabaret? And I don't want to try and get you guys in trouble when I say this. It's just because, do you look for a certain type of, is it a personality? Obviously, it needs to be good wrestling. Everyone in Brit Rest wrestles well, but Riot Cabaret is different because of like the personality of the wrestler. Do you have to? Is it certain individuals that suit better, or is it a case of we can kind of work on that, but you need to? I suppose is there a connection with the crowd that's needed?
I think it's more, it's, I'm just going by the experience of who we've dealt with and who I think we've made great stuff with. I think the common denominator is that everybody's got a mutual kind of investment in making something good. And I think that when people kind of understand what Riot Cabaret is, and we're always very open to how can also Riot Cabaret help you as a talent. And there are some talents that I think that their focus is on stuff that maybe isn't something that we can maximize what we give to you, right? But there's a lot of talent who we worked with. A case in point is Harrison Leon. So Harrison Leon was on Ring Crew, and I was like, can any of you guys just take a couple of videos for socials so we can just, where we've got something while the video team are editing. And then Harrison Leon then proceeded to basically video absolutely everything, organize it into folders, and have it in our inbox at 8:30 the next morning, like done brilliantly. And I was like, right, okay, well, this is a guy who, knows what's what. So, and then we started having ideas for, okay, what can we, how can we help Harrison Leon out? What can Riot Cabaret do, which I think would be great for Harrison Leon? And then that's when the Big Baller Invitational came in, because it gave Harrison this platform to be able to like build who that Harrison Leon character is, what that personality is, get that kind of opportunity to be able to do stuff on the microphone and find that. And I think that is something that only I think Riot Cabaret can offer. So that was an example of, I think it's when all of our personalities mesh and there's that mutual investment in that we all want to kind of do what's best for each other. I think that's where we've seen some really, really cool stuff created.
Yeah. Definitely. So Harrison's a good friend of us as well, and as is actually, fair enough, one of our sponsors, one of the wrestlers that we've sponsored this year has appeared on your few shows. And James, that is Artemis herself. She's been great on the show. But I want to talk about the Clapham Grand. This is a place that I've gone to wrestling show wise. Inside the Ropes was a lot. I spent a lot of my time and money on Inside the Ropes during their tours. They've done a lot of intimate events there. Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, I think Edge went there for the name of thing. Is it from the acting background that you looked at that place and thought, oh, this could be good when you're choosing a venue? And does it have to, what did you look for in a venue? Because a lot of people, it's like intimate settings, it's people close to the wrestling itself. But what did you guys look for in a venue from when you book this particular show?
I think the main attraction of the Clapham Grand is, a clue being in the name, is the sense of grandeur that I think it gives the presentation of what we're doing, and I think very much a mantra that we try and kind of carry forward whenever we're kind of working out how to present a wrestler or something like that, which is, if we treat this thing and these people like it's a big deal, the fans will treat it like it's a big deal as well. And I think the venue aesthetic is a huge part of that, and it's a reason why we invest so much in, the confetti drops and the balloon drops and things like that. And we have the extra tech crew that the venue brings to us, so that the presentation of the wrestlers can look as good, and the presentation of the whole product can look as good as it possibly can. And that, then I think, then when you do get those big moments, it means more, not just because of the story investment that you've given it and the time that you've given the narrative to actually breathe and for those beats to land, but also just because of the kind of perceived stakes. This whole thing matters. You believe that people are willing to almost kill each other for our championship belts because they're fighting in front of 500 people in this beautiful, more than a century old building. In terms of the Grand, as a sort of, as an operation, our ethos as a company, we really wanted it to be a welcoming and inclusive place, like somewhere where everyone can come and enjoy their wrestling. I think the Grand, that's a really important thing for us, in the sense that they're a very queer friendly venue. They have a lot of drag and cabaret shows, and their sensibilities as a team very much overlap with ours, in the sense of, like, they will program so many different things. They call themselves a palace of modern variety, which I think sits perfectly with us. And we want Riot Cabaret to be the kind of place that absolutely anyone could come and have a lovely time and enjoy a wrestling product that is for everyone. And knowing that the Grand, we've got a team there that's kind of supporting that and empowering people to have that experience as well, is really, really, it's a key pillar, I think, of who we are. It wasn't so much my theatrical background that made us first look at it as a venue. So a friend of mine is a musician who's played there quite a few times, and he actually did, during COVID, he did with the Grand, like a government pilot show, essentially, when they were looking at how they could bring back live events. He did like one of the first official kind of socially distanced gigs in the UK, because the government at the time was actually using the Grand as a bit of a test case, essentially, to say, okay, how could we bring back live events safely? And so I was chatting to him after that, and that's when I briefly met the venue manager, Ali, who I think at that point in time, neither of us could have realized how deeply intertwined our lives would become. But he and his whole team are fantastic. And when we spoke to them about running our first show there, because our previous venue that we had in Mayfair, it would have been good, but I think operationally there were some issues with it, not least the fact that the ring had to be carried up 3 flights of stairs. It's just, before lockdown, I did do like a test load in with a guy who we hired a ring for the day, just to make sure that it was logistically possible, and it was logistically possible, but certainly easier at the Grand, let me tell you. So that was, I think, where that initial contact was first made. And there was a slight element when we were pitching to them and kind of talking about what we wanted to do, where we were kind of thinking, like, are we going a little bit too big too early? But I'm really, really glad that we did go kind of all in on the Grand for the first show, because really we can't imagine ourselves anywhere else.
It is a beautiful venue, a fitting for wrestling, really, in my eyes. Shaun, wrestling on a Tuesday night. What was the rationale? Is it because I don't know many, if any, companies that do a wrestling on a Tuesday night? That maybe that helps with the whole. We mentioned about wrestlers pulling out and stuff. But was that part of it, or what was the rationale behind the Tuesday night?
I'll be honest with you, that was the only day we could do with James's work at that time. When James was you were in Peaky Blinders at that point.
It was Doctor Who before that, and then Peaky Blinders, but they're the same, very much the same setup. Yeah.
That there was Tuesday was really the only day we could both realistically do with our jobs. However, though, I think it has worked quite nicely. I think we're lucky because we're in London. It makes stuff so much easier being in London, and there is a market of people who do want to do things on a weeknight. So I think we're in a unique position for that. And in terms of also where the venue is based, it's just so well connected. It's like literally 90 seconds from Clapham Junction Station, which means I think you can realistically go to one of our shows and get back to Southampton fine.
James Musselwhite makes it to Portsmouth and back every time he does one of ours. So
yeah. So that's I think that's been. It wasn't the kind of like by design that it was going to be a weeknight thing, but I think we've sort of found that spot which is working for us at the moment. And I think to be able to sell out on a Tuesday night at Christmas for, a wrestling card, like there was no advertised Mr. Blobby or anything like that. It's purely for professional wrestling, I think was a cool moment for us. And I think going forward, like that weeknight slot, unless there is a our Forbidden Door show will be on the Friday. It's also got that little spot for us as well. But I really like our little weeknight slot. It'd be really interesting. I'd be fascinated to know how we would do on a weekend in like one of those more traditional wrestling afternoon slots. I'd be really fascinated because then that opens up possibility for people to come further afield. I'd be really fascinated to see how many people we could give a show to in one of those slots. But I don't think that that's in the pipeline for us in the near future at the moment. We like our little weeknight spot.
Tuesday works. I mean, I can get from Essex to there in the evening. So there, if anyone, my neck of the woods that are interested, it's easy. Clapham isn't too far away. As you say, it is literally right outside the station. There's a little pub you can go in, grab something to eat, have a few drink, and then head off and watch some Riot Cabaret. It's exactly what we did. We had a great time. Before we start to wrap up, there's two questions. And I just pulling the curtain back slide to anyone that's watching. I did give these guys a little bit of a heads up before. I didn't want to throw these guys in the deep end with the questions I'm about to ask, but Shaun, we'll come to you first with this. What is your since James gets a bit more time?
Actually, that's really bad news because if he says something that I had lined up, that's going to really up me. So,
well, you'll get the next question first. So we'll give you the next question first. But Shaun, from yours, what is since the inception of Riot Cabaret? What has been your top 3 Riot Cabaret matches?
In no particular order, although I think this might be my favorite one for a number of reasons. One of my favorites was Sunshine Machine versus Nina Samuels and Cassius versus Moth and Crowley for the tag team titles at Bohemian Rhapsody. Am I right with that one?
It was.
The reason why I love that match, and it's as we were talking about earlier about story, and I felt like they got about 4 Harry Potter books worth of story in one match and completely and utterly nailed and hit everything. And I think also as well, like, Sunshine Machine, like Nina and Cassius and Moth and Crowley. And then, of course, the Tate and James also got involved as well. And also, Spike's presence was felt. That it was also a match which kind of featured, I mean, there's been a lot of an amazing essential talent for us, but it was like a good club of our core MVPs all in one match, telling a lot of story, which all kind of culminated in that contest. And I love that match. It's I'm pretty sure it's up on our YouTube channel as well. So if you are listening, go and fish that one out. That one it's my favorite match. It's how it starts so fun. Something happens. The mood of the match shifts. Oh, it's really good. I loved it.
You got another 2 more yet, sure?
Oh, am I doing all 3?
Yeah. You got to do them all in one go. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so the second one, I'd say, I'm probably going to be forgetting something huge. I think Cara Noir and Chuck Mambo. Maybe just both of their matches. I'm just going to cheat. That's not my 3, but either of those 2 are going in the Cara and Mambo spot. The first match, just because it was so good and so special to finally see our wrestling kind of come from our minds in spring to life. I thought that was amazing. And then I think my third one would probably be Michael Oku, Leon Slater, and Robbie X, because just throughout that match, I was just jaw was on the floor. Couldn't believe what I was seeing. Just absolutely incredible champagne wrestling, just top tier stuff. And again, as Riot Cabaret is very much all about, as I said in that first match, it is a lot about story. It is a lot about the variety. However, when it comes to absolutely top tier professional wrestling, I absolutely would put our World Championship matches up against any company in the world, and that triple threat match, shining example of why that is. So there's my three.
There you go. There is the three from Shaun. James, no pressure, but it's your go now.
I was in the clear then, and then at the very death he named one of mine. So I'll go for the triple threat. I would probably, I think, then go for just to maybe like continue that for all the reasons Shaun said. I think the our All Singing All Dancing show in 2023, where we had Robbie v Leon, just one-on-one. That was kind of, I think, that was the first match I think we had that really, I think, caught the attention of people who maybe aren't regular viewers of Riot Cabaret for purely its in-ring. We kind of we didn't set it up with a huge amount of story. It was pretty much just like a kind of a thing of like, here you go, lovely fans, enjoy this feast of wrestling.
Lots of you have bought tickets, so here is a bonus match.
Yeah. And so that was really cool, because I think that was the first one where when the dust had settled on that first all-in weekend, we had a lot of people that we were getting tagged in it. And the same show, actually, Sunshine Machine v JJ and Nico, those two matches, a lot of people were saying were their matches of like the whole weekend. And I think that was a really big moment for us. So if I'm allowed to kind of encapsulate those two in like one selection, that felt like the moment where Riot Cabaret's like in-ring stuff really kind of crossed over out of our little kind of section of the wrestling audience. And I think more people who value that type of ring work became kind of aware of what we were doing, which was really cool. As well as that, my favorite of mine, I think this is one of the ones where it felt like a culmination of story that we had. And there's so many matches I could say this about, like the Crowley and Spike match that you mentioned at the last show, for example. But the first sort of longer term story that we did, that we paid off over the course of 5 shows, was kind of Cara Noir becoming this kind of figure slightly obsessed with the World Championship and with kind of taking down Mambo as champion, who beat him in the first ever match, as we mentioned before, but also Spike trying to drive a wedge between Sunshine Machine. So we set up Spike's stable, the Greedy Vultures, and then we had, as a surprise for the main, it was a tag match but for the World Championship, and it was Sunshine Machine versus Spike Trivet and a partner of his choosing, the assumption being that he's obviously going to choose someone from the Greedy Vultures, either one of the Souls or Murdoch. But actually the story that we're really telling there is Cara Noir's fixation with the World Championship and how he will do anything to get to Mambo and get to that title. And I think that first tag match that we had between them is the Vultures against the Machine. That's the first match of ours where I remember everything up to that point. I've been watching it and I've been concerned with timings. I've been concerned with logistics. I've been concerned with cues. Because as well as doing the MCing, I'm behind the curtain as well in Guerrilla. I'm just kind of a point of contact essentially for the talent that are there too. So quite often people come to me with, questions, or we'll be going over stuff or whatever while the show is going on. But that was the first match of ours that I can really remember losing myself in the story of that match, and really just watching that for what it was, which was an amazing piece of storytelling and kind of just a triumph of not just the 4 guys who were officially in the match, but obviously the Souls and Murdoch at ringside as well. And they all just did amazing work in that match. So yeah, that was a really cool one. If any Riot Cabaret Gold subscribers out there, I feel like that one, the main of Vultures against the Machine, is a little bit of a hidden gem in the Riot Cabaret archives. It doesn't really get talked about all that much, but if I am ever thinking about what are some of my favorite matches that we've done, that one's always one that kind of springs up to me. And I don't think it doesn't get the love it deserves, least of all from us. I think that's a cool one. Where's my notes here? I'm just going to go. I'm going to go silly buggers for this next one. I'm going to go Slam Ball. We debuted, as you saw, Adam, you saw it.
Yes.
We debuted a new match format that TK Cooper pitched to us called Slam Ball, which is essentially 2 5-minute halves. You can only score a point by doing a body slam on your opponent. End of the 10 minutes, most body slams wins. Nice and simple. And we sprinkled a little bit of our kind of razzle dazzle, Riot Cabaret production goodness on it. And then we were kind of going into it going, this is going to be a fun match. I'm really looking forward to this match. I think it's got enough going on in it that, it's going to be a fun bit of something different for the fans, but also as well, the four guys working in it are obviously amazing. So we know that they're going to serve up something really, really cool and fun as well. And then, even with those quite lofty expectations, I don't think we were quite prepared for how it was going to go down on the night, which is to say, brilliantly.
Yes.
Like, yeah, that was just like I think it's an example of what I really love doing about Riot Cabaret, which is what can we do with wrestling that just kind of it keeps it rooted in the familiar, but it just gives people something slightly different. And just kind of collaborating with talent on ideas like that is so often one of the most exciting bits of the job, and it's one of the reasons why I absolutely, well, we both absolutely love it when talent come to us with ideas. And sometimes, we might not be the right fit for it. It might work better somewhere else, or maybe we've got something like a little bit too similar to it already on the show or whatever. But that's a real example of where the stars just aligned and the fans absolutely understood the assignment as well. It's like, great, this is a really fun match, and we are essentially a boozed up darts crowd for the next 10 minutes. Say no more. So that was really, really fun. And I think an honourable mention as well has to go to Grado v Shah Samuels from All Singing All Dancing 2024. Because we've been wanting to do something with Grado for a long, long time. We'd sort of tried to get him on our Christmas show the year before, but he's in Panto. He's a hard man to pin down at that time of year. And he's got his radio show as well, so he's a hard man to pin down at the best of times. So we've for a long time we've really thought that Grado and Riot Cabaret is a bit of a match made in heaven, and then to be able to put those two guys together, because obviously they've known each other and worked together for many, 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 many years. And Shah's a big part of what we do behind the curtain as well as our producer. So to be able to kind of give him that moment with his best pal in front of a sold out crowd at All In Weekend was a really cool moment, and I just adored the match as well. Heaps of fun, and we were delighted to have Grado along for the ride.
Yeah, that is a great match. I do remember a lot of people talking about that one actually over that weekend. But the questions don't finish there. The final question before we start wrapping up and letting you guys say what you've got coming up. And James, this one is going to you first because Shaun did indeed have the first question. So you have 5 picks of wrestlers from anywhere, where regardless, whatever promotion, WWE, anywhere. What are the top 5 that you are bringing in? And not really bringing in, by the way, anyone, but if you were allowed to bring in anyone, who would the top 5 be?
Infinite money sheet. I think my top one, first of all, would have to be Bryan Danielson. I think in terms of what he's achieved over the years in wrestling, he's rightfully in the conversation as the greatest of all time. He's on many, many, many people's kind of Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling. And I think there are so many amazing, amazing talents that I think you could pair with Bryan Danielson. At just just dropping a couple of names. I think imagining like a Bryan Danielson versus Michael Oku, or a Leon Slater, or a Cara Noir, or a Charles Crowley, or a Spike Trivet. There's so many really quite mouth-watering possible matches for him, and I think to get him along for we'd make sure we had Final Countdown for him, and I think the ground would make sure they gave him that good and proper. My next one, I think now this would be someone who, when I went on a bit of a kind of wrestling fandom sabbatical, really. I watched it a little bit when I was at university, but by that point I'd kind of fallen out of love with it. And actually, the first few years of Progress were the thing that got me back into it. And a big part of that, actually, one of my favorite performers from that era was Fergal Devitt, of course, now Finn Balor. So I think to be able to bring Finn in to the fold would be a really, really cool thing, because obviously he's never appeared at Riot Cabaret because of timelines, but he's someone that I think has always admired, and in terms of what he has done for the British and Irish wrestling scene, has been, his contribution is almost incalculable. And I don't think I would be as involved. I certainly wouldn't be as involved in British wrestling as I am now if it wasn't for the work that he'd done before he got signed. So I think that would be a really cool kind of full circle moment. And he's obviously, I think this is the year where I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Finn get quite a big push in WWE this year, because he's been doing amazing work with Judgment Day. And I think he's obviously been quite unlucky when they've pushed him in the past, but I think this could be a real banner year for Balor to kind of remind everyone what he can do and what fans on this continent have known he can do for a very long time. Which brings me on to my third, which I mean, I would just have to say, and this is again someone that we've kind of admired from these shores as well, which would be Gunter.
Oh,
And I think, again, that's just in terms of if we talk about aura, to use the word that the kids would use, like in terms of wrestlers with aura, it's hard to go any higher than Gunter. And I think if you were to just, I'm picturing the moment now where, New World Symphony hits, and I think to see Gunter walk out in a venue like the Grand, it just with the big coat and everything, there's something about it that just feels right. And obviously, in terms of the work that he has done and the run that he's having and has been on in WWE, you could make the case that there is no one from the independent scene in recent years that's had a more successful kind of integration to the WWE than Gunter has. So I think that would be really, really interesting to see what would kind of happen if Gunter were to come from the WWE with everything that he is now and kind of come back onto the independent scene. What would that look like? I think would be a really exciting bit of a head scratcher. Number 4, can I have
I'm back there. Go 4.
Oh.
You cut me
He's
off.
back. Oh, that also could not have been better timed as well. If that had cut me off like mid thought, I'd have been screaming trying to find back in there. That's great. Am I allowed a tag team to count as one?
Yeah, go for it.
I would go FTR. I've been just a gigantic admirer of their work for such a long time, and I think a lot of the matches that were that era of NXT when I think it was really at its peak and the takeovers were sort of being lauded more than any of the kind of main roster shows that were happening in any given year. And a lot of that was down to, teams like American Alpha, DIY, the Revival as they were then, and those kinds of matches were, when I think of that era of NXT, which is one of my favorite eras of any wrestling product as a fan, thinking about those tag matches, the Revival are a huge, huge part of that. And I think there are so many teams in this country, like tag team wrestling in this country is as good as it has been for a very long time. And if you think about the teams that you could get a team like FTR in to face, like a Sunshine Machine, for example. I know they've exchanged like a little bit of needling on social media over the year or so, but that would be a mouth-watering prospect, and I think that FTR would be a really exciting prospect there. If we could get them in right, that'd be swell. And then I think my fourth one, kind of for the similar sort of aura reasons as Gunter, I think would be Rhea Ripley. I think in terms of the progression again that she has had and the journey that she's been on since she signed, Rhea was one of those ones where you would kind of watch her in NXT or watch her in the Mae Young Classic, and you would kind of go like, she's really, really good. Like she's unbelievably good. I'm not really sure like how much room for improvement there is here. She's kind of, certainly when she was in NXT, I sort of was thinking like, she kind of feels like the finished article. This is amazing. I don't really think that you can do much more with her. And then she's just got, even from there, she's just got better and better and better and better. And it's really cool watching kind of people like Gunter or people like Rhea, who were obviously amazing before they went into NXT UK, but who were in that part of the company, who are then arguably you could say arguably the two biggest stars in the company, are definitely among the biggest stars in the company. I think that's a really cool thing as well. So I don't know if that's a slight kind of UK bias, even though neither of them are actually British, but like they've worked over here a lot and they're part of NXT UK, whether that's that kind of bias creeping in there a little bit. But I think, yeah, Rhea has done incredible things for women's wrestling, and just her run in WWE has been phenomenal. And just as a person who's just got like the star power in the same way that Gunter has, I think that would be a real cool one to have. Yeah.
There you go, top 5. Shaun, without, and this time I won't disappear, your top 5, please, of people you would bring in.
So Gunter and Rhea Ripley were on my list, so I've scratched them off because they've been done. I would like to see MJF. I feel like he's very Riot Cabaret.
What?
I feel like we could do some really fun stuff. I really like an MJF Spike Trivet piece of business. Like, I would just love to see those two kind of face off on the mic, maybe team up, who knows? But I think MJF would be great. Also,
Formerly of Clapham Grand Parish, of course.
of course, so when we were doing research on the venue, we found one wrestling show that had been in the Clapham Grand before. So we signed up to, I think it was like IPW or something. I mean, we signed up to their on-demand service to just have a look and see what wrestling looks like in the Clapham Grand. And the first person who came out was MJF. He was in a CZW championship match against Chris Brooks. Exactly the same presentation, but very different reaction. So yeah, I think get MJF back in the Clapham Grand. Also, just in terms of, I think it's also very Riot Cabaret. I'm going to say Bo Dallas is Uncle Howdy, and WWE are going to license us the IP for that character, and we're going to. I think you could do some Uncle Howdy car noir, maybe some sort of business there. I think that could be really fun. I think Mercedes Moné paired up against Nina Samuels, maybe with some Thunder Rosa sprinkled in there as well. I think there's definitely some good stuff that you could do there. In terms of a tag team, I'd love to bring Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate back in. I think Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate against Subculture, maybe a British strong style Subculture face off, I think would be very, very, very interesting. And if I could bring someone back and then just have them as our like end of level super mega boss championship, I think you could just have Cesaro in that role. I think in the British scene, if you could have Cesaro as just your end of level mega boss, like in the kind of the old Brock Lesnar matches of the past, I think that would be really, really fun. So those are my sprinklings of people who I'd bring into Riot Cabaret.
Can I add mine now?
Yeah, please do.
Tag team, and because I can just envisage it, the Hardy Boys, Jeff Hardy swantoning off the balcony in one of that would be.
Don't think about the insurance, James. We're having fun. Okay? About the public liability. This is a laugh.
Exactly. Orange Cassidy.
Yes,
he would be.
Orange Cassidy and Blobby could be a good combo.
I've got another one for Blobby. I'll tell you that. Someone who I don't know why, I've just got an image in my head. Cassius and Damian Priest. I don't know why. I'm not quite
sure.
Well, what did Rhea call him? The bisexual Undertaker or something? I don't know. I don't know. I just have that image of.
I mean, we saw Cassius work. Was it Gabe Kidd at Hustle?
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. So I've no doubt that would really help as well.
Yeah, and just for one, so someone I could think of the level of hate of Spike Dudley, I'd love Dirty Dom Mysterio just to rock up, just because I think someone that you might even get a cheer for Spike if Dom rocks up. I know we got a cheer for him,
Spike Dudley or Spike Trevay?
Spike Trevay.
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard Spike Dudley then for a second. I was like, Spike Dudley?
No. Just someone that could be on the same heat level as Spike would be Dirty Dom. And we already mentioned Mr. Blobby. I just have someone in my head that I could just envision dancing with him to his theme song, and that would be Seth Rollins.
Rollins and Blobby
coming out in a big pink gown with glasses.
Yeah, his fur glasses. I just think he would suit Cabaret right now with his gimmick and his outlandish clothes, and he could, orchestrate the Clapham Grand to his theme, but with Mr. Blobby involved as well.
You've spoken it into existence now, so there is a very real danger that it could happen.
Our DMs are open.
DMs are open. Triple H, Nick Khan, whoever we need to make that happen. Please do. Look, guys, we're going to start wrapping up now, and I promise I won't cut off again. If you can, just let us know. Slamamia 2 is coming up, I believe.
Slamamia, here we go again. Because just one Slamamia wasn't enough. So we were last year, that was our first show of 2024, and this year we're going to be back with yet more Riot Cabaret goodness to start off your year. Normally, I think January, February, they're some quite bleak months, so I think it's nice to have something to look forward to. So we're really going to go. I think 2025 is the year where Riot Cabaret really goes hell for leather on some very, very fun things, and you can expect that to start at Slamamia. Here we go again on the 11th of February at the Clapham Grand.
And tickets are on sale where, Sean? Where can I get them?
If you go on to riotcabaret.com, they're on there. The dice link's also on our social media as well, at Riot Cabaret on everything. There'll be plenty of links to get you to our dice page to snap up those tickets and get them quick, because they've been disappearing fast recently.
And legitimately, that isn't just they do.
This is my solemn plea now. So today we've officially sold out all of our ringside seating now, floor and stools. We've sold out all of our VIP boxes. We only have a handful of seats on the tables on the stage remaining, and then after that it is just standing room only, which is also moving fast. So at the Christmas show we had loads and we were sold out for about 3 weeks, which was really cool. It was our biggest, we sold out the furthest from show day ever on that show. We still had people messaging us at like 4 p.m. on show day asking if more tickets were going to be released. Sold out means sold out, folks, I'm afraid. So if you're even vaguely interested in coming, now is the time to get tickets, because there ain't going to be more.
No, legitimately that is the case, and I was there, so I can vouch for that. So get yourselves down there. You're in for a hell of a treat. Just quickly before we go, big thanks to Shelly Martinez, big thanks to Will Caven and Todd Gordon, who have been on recently on our podcast. You can go and check that out. But coming up, literally, as I was just saying to the guys, I'll be recording with Austin Aries coming up, so that should be an interesting one as he returns, fun enough, to the UK this coming March. So we're looking forward to sitting down with him. We do have some more independent showcases coming up. We have got TIG, we have got Ruthless Rob Drake and North Wrestling coming on the show as well. And NWA Spotlight returns as well with Black G's and Hollywood Haley J. And finally, going back to ECW days with CW Anderson coming on the channel as well. And big thanks to Francine, who joined us recently on the show as well. But guys, I will get down to see you guys very, very soon at the Clapham Ground. I'm looking forward to it. Guy, if you haven't already done and been to see Riot, it is literally a riot. You should change maybe your song to I Predict a Riot or something like that along those lines, because it is a brilliant, brilliant show. Get yourselves down there. I'll be down there soon. But for now, Shaun, James, very, very good luck to you guys in 2025. I'll get down to see you guys very, very soon.
Thank you very much, Adam. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Cheers. Appreciate it.
No worries. So, guys, this has been Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with Riot Cabaret. And until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and goodbye.